Okay, I really have to put this on a video. It's one more little element to this recent trial which I haven't covered so far, and it does need consigning to the list. So I'll produce a list of links in the description to take you to other parts of the same trial that I'm discussing, but this video definitely needs adding. Okay, the trial that we're talking about was on the 4th of July 2018, and the links that I'll provide in the description give you the rest of the information. This is just one aspect of antisocial behaviour cited by the applicant for the ASBO against the defendant. Here goes. It's actually half of an item. There was a Justice for Chelsea demonstration in Sunderland on the 14th of the 10th 2017. Just as a quick background for the demonstration, a young lady she went into a kebab shop, asked for directions, they dragged her upstairs, kidnapped her, raped her, wrongfully imprisoned her. She escaped later. She was seen running down the road in her underwear that she'd managed to get back on. Witnesses, CCTV coverage, DNA evidence was collected. This is one of the few examples of the police actually doing an investigation and collecting together all the evidence. And then the CPS, Crown Prosecution Service, decided not to proceed with the prosecution. And then when we crowdfunded a barrister to start a private prosecution for her to sue her rapists using the evidence collected by the police, then the CPS said to the barrister, well, if you do that, we can take over the prosecution and then cancel it. So she was denied even the possibility of suing these people for raping her. And there were a lot of demonstrations. Obviously, if you've been watching the news, they haven't been on it. Everything's been kept off the news. You know, 2017 and 2018 so far, there've been 2 years of just demonstration after demonstration. Although you never know it if you were looking at mainstream media. It's all hidden. But anyway, one aspect, there's two things about Sunderland that's made up this one item and is antisocial behaviour. One is the speech in itself, that's anti-Islamic. So according to them, that's antisocial behaviour, giving an anti-Islamic speech to a bunch of people listening who are anti-Islamic themselves, but there you go. We've already gone through the legal definition of what antisocial behaviour is elsewhere in other videos, and this clearly is not it. It's been pointed out in the courts, just ignored. But it's the second part I'm interested in. Several police officers were deployed to maintain order as a number of Jada Franson supporters huddled around her in an apparent attempt to frustrate the plans by police to arrest her. One of these supporters was Mr. Banks, whom was heard to shout "Guard of Honour" in the apparent encouragement of the crowd to gather around her. In my previous witness statement, I exhibited a copy of the disc containing the footage of the speech, exhibit JT1. Okay, well, we never actually got to see this footage until the day of the trial, so something in the disclosure process didn't really work. Before we saw the video coverage that they had, I put it to the judge that, look, this man went into the crowd and talked Jada Franson into surrendering to the police rather than letting people protect her from being arrested. She was being arrested on some frivolous other bullshit. If I'd have been there myself, I'd have been standing in the way too. The police should have been forced to truncheon a load of people to get to her, to just put a spotlight on a ridiculous, wrongful abuse of the law that arresting her was. But that's not what John Banks did, and I said that immediately, even before we saw what footage they had. I said, well, you know, I've spoken to other witnesses who were there on the day. John was the person, the actual person, who went in and talked them into just peacefully letting her just go to the police line and surrender herself, which is exactly what she did. When they then showed the footage, it bore out exactly what I just said. He is heard indeed to say "Guard of Honour." He says it twice, very short amount of time between them. You can't really hear what else he's saying. It's impossible to infer from the footage whether he's encouraging her or discouraging her from surrendering. Or the only thing you can tell is that in less than 20 seconds after the second time he says "Guard of Honour," she is at the line of police. She's actually made her way to the police within less than 20 seconds of the second time he said guard of honour. So he's basically just telling everybody to just, you know, be a guard of honour to us. She's going to walk into the police line. That's exactly what the footage shows, their footage that they showed in court. And I did say in court, well, that looks like it's bearing out our version of what happened. That looks like the exact opposite to what the applicant for the ASBO is maintaining happening. That doesn't look like he's encouraged it, because this situation went on quite a while, and the bit we're talking about is right at the end, where there was a standoff where the police couldn't arrest Jada because she was in a crowd of people that didn't want her to be arrested for, you know, just nonsense. And at the end of this scene, you see John saying guard of honour, and then guard of honour again, and then before you know it, she's made her way, that's sort of a 15 foot or whatever it is, to the police line. So you can't really, I mean, it could be that he was there telling her not to surrender, for all we know. The video doesn't show either way what he was actually trying to say, but what you can say is that if he was encouraging her, she totally did the opposite to what he was saying. She gave herself up straight after him talking to her. So the video appears to show exactly the opposite to what the applicants for the ASBO saying it shows, and the judge simply was silent, didn't respond to that one. And all the interaction tended to be between myself and the judge, not between myself and there was no opportunity to talk to the barrister who was applying for the ASBO, except I spoke to him out of court, but weirdly there's no interplay between us. It was really, I was talking to the judge through the prosecution, apart from one time where I was cross-examining a police officer who was giving evidence, but really the judge is like the prosecutor in these cases, and they just ignore the fact that the evidence points to exactly the opposite to what they said. You know, again, I would point you to the Rotherham speech. That's a good one, where it's described as an anti-Islamic speech, and it doesn't mention Islam, but it mentions the police quite a lot and their corruption. We did have a jury in that trial, but it wasn't a government selected jury. The people we got in as observers were a jury, and the judge herself was on trial as Judge Russell, and I've got to say that jury found her guilty of being a bullshit abuser of our law. You look at what people were writing about that trial in the days afterwards, you know, I saw several people come out with the words, I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it. Complete bullshit. Complete, utter bullshit. Doncaster Court, Judge Russell, July 4th, 2018. Okay.